All right, so good afternoon, everybody. I always like having the session right after lunch because you get people's attention, right? So my name is Tony Gomez. I am the Director of Sales for all of state and local government for AirWatch. AirWatch is an enterprise management mobility platform, recently acquired by VMware earlier this year. So by talking to a lot of people here, everyone seems to be using or a very, very happy VMware customer, so that's great to see. So what I'm here to talk about really today is really how mobility is affecting public sector, more importantly state and local government, some use cases for you, and then I'll go into kind of more of really defining for you guys what is MDM, what is EMM, MCM, MAM, MEM, MBM, right? Kind of that whole, I call that, that alphabet soup of enterprise mobility. So that's kind of what it is. It's kind of like a basics, but kind of lay a groundwork on kind of your understanding on not only what's out there and kind of talk about, again, the public sector. All right, so just a few stats. All these presentations need one, right, to kind of set the stage for kind of mobility that's just kind of growing and going on in your organizations. We all know consumerization is kind of driving this, these devices into the enterprise, right? It's kind of one of those things where, it's here, it's not going away, they're coming in, more people are bringing in their own devices, they're bringing in their own IT, right? Meaning storage applications, right? In order to do their jobs better at work, right? I wouldn't call it a millennial thing, but you know what? If I like using Evernote to take notes, right? Why would I use, a solution or product that you guys have when I can bring it into the enterprise and use it myself? It's more convenient, right? That goes for, all the IT applications and products that are currently out there, right? But mobility is one of those things where you either embrace it and you find a way to control it, right? As IT administrators, right? So how do we provide that level of security and as well as enablement, right? In order to provide people the best way, to handle mobility and making sure we're protecting the corporate network. So there's a lot of things to think about. So mobility not only has to do with devices or the carrier, right? It has to do with everything a mobile device touches, if you think about that, right? It touches email infrastructure, right? Exchange, Lotus Notes. It touches peripherals. It touches rugged devices. Rugged devices, when I say rugged devices today, I mean the Windows devices that are used out there for scanning and logistics. There's a couple devices sitting out there with CHP today, right? These are things, not the rugged laptops, not those, but real rugged devices. And we talk about peripherals as well, managing those, and then also laptops. Then you think about everything it touches, applications, email. Does it touch any back-end infrastructure like content repositories, Wi-Fi networks, right? These are all things that are interacting with your mobile device, and these are all things that are interacting with enterprise resources or enterprise applications today that you guys are managing or a team member of yours is managing today. And then we go into kind of everything else about controlling security on the devices, like certificates, filtering, malware detection, network access controls, all these things, again, that's in your enterprise. And then we talk about the resources, the actual infrastructure that's needed for that. Virtual machines, servers, databases as well. So as you can see, the mobile device, again, is very, very powerful, but it also touches a lot of the things today in the enterprise. And so I go around and speak to a lot of state and local government customers, and this is kind of the curve or maturity that I'm currently seeing. And really what it is a three-phase approach. And really, first thing is everyone wants to get a baseline of security, right? How do I control this stuff? How do I handle this? Or how do I make sure everyone's compliant with HIPAA for public health, or CJIS for law enforcement, right? Or Department of Revenue with, slipping my mind, the credit card, the PCI, thank you very much, right? How do I do that, right? How do I protect, taxpayer information, right, when that's in my system, or patient information that are in my system? And those could be simple passcode policies, meaning I just want to make sure everyone has a 4-digit passcode on their phone when they bring it into the enterprise, because I know they're going to get corporate email or government email, right? And asset tracking is also another one where, you can't imagine every department or agency or special district that I walk into and say, can you tell me how many mobile devices you have in your entire fleet, right? And so far, I am 100% no one knows exactly what they are until they implement an enterprise mobility management solution, right? So, you have these devices. Some of them are coming in BYO. Some of them, you're buying from all these different carriers, or maybe one if you're standardized, right? But you don't know exactly where they are, who they're with. Did they give that guy a phone and a tablet? Did I give that guy 2 tablets because he needs one for work and he needs one for his line of business, right? So, all basic things. Then we move into kind of what I call enablement, right? Usually when you deploy an enterprise mobility management solution, what happens is you lock down everything, right? Everything gets locked down, you limit stuff, maybe you turn off iTunes, or you turn off the camera on the phone, or you start restricting a lot of things, right? Because you don't want you don't want people watching YouTube or playing Angry Birds, at work, So you start locking everything down. But then, people eventually from the program areas, right? So the program areas will start to come to IT and say, well, I want to access this particular repository, right? That's a network drive. Or I think this application, would help me do my job better. Can we start to use that, right? And then all these needs will come from that. And really where that leads to is the application management portion and the content management of the platform, right? How do I enable users? How do I get users to the information versus the users going to go into the information? And this is in a form of, for content, it's these repositories. SharePoint is a huge one, right? So instead of, maybe your strategy today is, have SharePoint or some kind of file repository on premise. I'm looking at a cloud repository probably in the future, maybe O365, Office 365, right? So what's my strategy to get all those repositories to the mobile device user, right? And that's really the content management portion of it. And then also application management. For example, if you're a field worker, you're trying to access a legacy application behind the firewall, you're probably firing up a web browser on that device today, right? And trying to access it. Someone's built a web front end to you, right? Or someone has virtualized that application, right? Now you're accessing it through the browser, right? So kind of what's the next step to that? Maybe you do build a really more of a robust front end that's HTML5, right? That's mobile device ready, right? But really what you want to get to is building that all the way to a native mobile application. So an actual iOS or Android or Windows application that can live natively on the device, that can follow how the look and feel of a native mobile application versus trying to access a browser and control it just like you would trying to do a desktop, but you're doing it on a 7-inch or 11-inch iPad, right? And then we go into kind of where the innovation happens. This is kind of the third phase. And most of the state and local governments I talk to are kind of between that security and enablement phase today. When we talk about innovation, we talk about machine to machine, right? The connected city, the digital state, right? When we talk about the Internet of Things, right? All these data that's connected. If you think about it, think about your connected home. The home is already connected today. You can control your lights, what color they are. You can talk to your fridge, right? You can talk to your alarm, right? Nest is out there, and then Google's out there building an actual platform, right? A standardized platform for you to build on top of this, right? So you can build more things that are connected. And all these things are differently popping up, right? From Sanjay today in the keynote talked about alarm clocks, right? And then there is even going to be kind of the next step here where apps are actually talking to each other, right? So the actual, my calendar app, my GPS app, and my open table app are going to be one day connected, right? This is happening today. There's a framework being built for that. So they know when I'm stuck in traffic, right? My app and phone already know to contact open table and try and move that reservation back a little bit, right? If I can. Right? That framework is already opening up, and for the enterprise, that same framework, one is going to be available, but you're going to also need a way to manage that, okay? And then that's the kind of the Internet of Things, kind of, the analytics portion, all the sensors, cameras, all these things that are already happening in the cities. So the challenges, right? What do we do here? What do we do? How do we boost productivity? How do we secure, right? How do we answer all these different questions? A lot of things that are happening too is data, right? Data leakage, right? How do we prevent all that? So by leveraging enterprise mobility management, right, we talk about the different pieces of it, right? What is required? What is required for BYOD management as well, right? And also by doing and enabling, right, not only securing but enabling, right, worker productivity, you just have a happier workforce in general, right? Either they're using their own devices or you're allowing them to, get access, to their work email while still, giving them the freedom to do whatever they want or view whatever they want. But then again, you need security. You need hardened FIPS 140-2 security, AES 256-bit, right? Securing data in transit, right? And also at rest. And then you also need the enterprise mobility platform. So a couple of use cases. A lot of this has to do with the most mobile workforces out there: law enforcement, first responders, all right, inspectors, health inspector, building inspector, road inspectors, even elected members, right? Elected members meaning the county commissioners, how they access the board books, right? How they interact with the agenda, the data, how they they write up, highlight, mark up, and store that back. We talk about courts, legal, same scenarios there. Public works, how they're doing that. Road maintenance, again, we talk about a lot of transit authorities where they're watching videos on their laptop while they're in the field in order to get more information to fix the rail system that they're looking at, where they don't have to run back to the truck, right, or go back, right? All this data is going to be available to them in the tablet, right, or in their mobile device. So everyone's trying to do more with less, obviously, with with the mobility, right? And it can definitely be achieved, right? You just need a couple different pieces to get that going, and you need that basic foundation and framework in order to do that, right? So not only does it enable communications, and also talk about efficiencies, but getting something in place to where it's adhering to the policies that are in place by the organization, right? And can support that. And again, supporting it in a way where, if you are mandated by federal mandates to do something, if you have an app that that the CDC mandates for you to use, right? You have control over the device that it's being used on, meaning you can remote wipe it, you can find it, you can push it down to just the users that need to have it based on their role. Okay. And then, disaster recovery, obviously first responders again, but really also the contractors, right? There's a lot of contractors in the organizations, right? How do you get them access to corporate resources without doing everything that you need to do, like to set them up as an internal employee? How do you give them access to just this pieces of the content you want, or just pieces of the SharePoint, or just the cloud drive, or just maybe you're going to set them up with an email address, but how do you push out that email address to them? And then when their contract's up, how do you remove all that from them? Because contractors are going to bring in their perfect BYO scenario. Most cases, you're going to want them to bring in their own stuff, but you can't, right? Today, you have to issue them, county, state, device. Okay. And I think I kind of talked about that, but containerization, right, is obviously kind of a word we've heard out there before, and really what that means, the containerization, sandbox, these are all kind of the same terminology that that people are using in order to say, I want to put this work persona or work sandbox or work container on your device. It could be BYO, or it could be government issued, but we only see and manage and control everything that's going on in that sandbox. So what does a mobile device management or enterprise mobility management platform really consist of, right? We manage both the device and what we call a workspace, okay? We see apps, content, email, and browsing are all the key capabilities, but it's actually a lot broader and deeper than that, but these are the key ones I'll touch on today. So for an enterprise mobility management platform, you're going to need something that, one, every mobile device you're going to want to manage under a pane of glass. You don't want to manage laptops in one thing and then manage laptops or manage your mobile devices in another thing, right? You don't want to manage two different systems, right? You want one single pane of glass to manage all device types. And then you want something to also manage all different operating systems, right? Especially when you open up the BYOD scenario, you're gonna get every flavor, right? And when I talk about that, Android, right? Android is very, very dispersed operating system, I would say. There's many, many different flavors of Android, and then you add on the Samsung, HTC, Motorola, all those other layers on top of that, right? Makes it very, very diverse. It's not like Apple where 90-something% of the users are at the latest version, right? So you're managing to that. And then you also talk about every use case, right? Is it BYOD? Is it a multi-user device, right? Is it a device that every fire engine has, right? But it's assigned to every fire engine, but different people pick it up and use it and log in with their credentials, right? And use it for that one fire engine, right? Or is it a device that sits, in a hospital where a nurse comes in, logs in with her credentials, she gets her apps, she gets her email, she gets access to her content, end of her shift, she puts it back. Doctor comes in, picks up the same device, logs in, he gets his content, his apps. So those are the multi-user ones, right? Road crews, right, do this all the time, right? They need, GPS, they need weather apps, they need all these things, but you know what? When I'm done with my shift, I log out and put it back up. And so what you want to do is you want to have both. You want to have a hybrid approach, right, depending on the use case. You want what we call full MDM, or mobile device management, where I know everything that's going on with that device. I know GPS, I know battery usage, I know every identifier that's tied to that. I know what applications are on there, I know what content's on there, I know what versions of everything that you have on there, right? Full mobile device management, right? And that's great and needed for some use cases. Then you have what we call the container approach, or the managed or our workspace approach, right? Again, where we're only deploying an application into a device, and we're only seeing and viewing what's going on in that application. We're only configuring your access, your identity, your profiles within that's going on in that containers. That could be what browsing sites you have, right? But on Safari, right, on the device, you can still go wherever you want, right? You can have access to content that's within the network, right? But then you could have Dropbox or something, an app that's still on your phone as well. Okay. And then you need something that what we call multi-tenant. So if you haven't heard of this term, it's a pretty common term, but it's really what multi-tenant architecture really does. It provides you the singularity or the flexibility, right? But also the granularity as well to separate and manage different department, agencies, groups down to a single person or down to a single device with profiles that are only up to you. So for example, a big one is for a deployment, maybe there's a standard for 4-digit passcodes, right? Everyone's going to get a 4-digit passcode if you want to get email to corporate email. But for maybe first responders or something more, maybe I want them to have a 6-digit passcode, one special character, right? And then for other folks, you may want something else, right? Or it could be down to the device type itself, right? You can get very, very granular in kind of what you're doing and what you're presenting and how profiles are done. So for example, you may have a device that says, I don't want any camera, no iTunes access, or Google Play, or anything like that. But if I just have a general administrator and they just need access to their email, then I may just put them under workspace, right? And then I kind of touched on this before, but then you gotta manage also the other systems in your mobility ecosystem and how the mobile device interacts with those, right? These are just a swap of kind of these different pieces, right, that are touching the mobile device and they have access to, right? So you need a large ecosystem, right, for this enterprise mobility management solution, right, to interact with, be integrated with, be able to talk to each other with, right? So a couple here, certificates for advanced authentication, right, to network email. Also, we talked about email, talked about repositories. Do you want to turn off Safari and provide people a browser that has the same web filtering as you do on your desktop, right? That requires an integration to a Blue Coat or a WebSense or a Zscaler today. Is that a policy that you have to follow? Or does it matter, right? So again, mobility kind of touches a lot of these different types of, or addresses these types of needs, right? Securing stuff, electronic flight bags today, for law enforcement, or fishing game type of applications. Instead of them lugging around, a flight bag or carrying those books with them, everything can be done on an iPad today, a 2-pound iPad. All right, so now what does it all mean, right? What do all the pieces mean? What's this alphabet soup like? So mobile device management. What it really is really we are, or enterprise mobility management solutions today, are integrating with the APIs provided by the operating system manufacturer. So iOS, they put out a set of APIs, right? And we as a vendor integrate with them, right? For example, iOS has some, Android has tons, and then you add kind of the manufacturer on that, there's even more. Like I think Samsung has 700 additional APIs to control. So, and what does this mean, right? So an API could be enforce a passcode, right? That's an API. Turn off the camera. Turn off any native mobile application like iTunes, right? Those are all native things that you can control with APIs. How do I configure email profiles and things like that, right? And then do it in a way where it's easy for the end user to enroll their device and make it seamlessly done over the air. Okay? So email management, right? How do you integrate with the email repositories or email solutions that you have? How does it integrate with that, right? A simple one for here would be, for example, today, you probably get a device, your AD credentials, you go to the native mail app and you punch in your credentials, you start getting mail, right? So with a mobile device management solution, we basically, once you enroll into MDM, we basically push that profile down for you to automatically get that, so you don't have to punch that in, right? But the good thing is with an MDM, we can remove that as well. So if you lose your device or you happen to leave the organization, the IT has control over that. And then more advanced to that is really what we call attachment stripping as well. So when you get an email and you have an attachment on that email, we can force it to open in a container to where it never leaves. So you can't open it into Dropbox, or you can't open it into an Adobe Reader, or you can't open it anywhere outside of an IT-controlled secure application, right? Where there's no data leakage. Same thing for links, right? You get an email in your corporate and it has a link on there. We can force it to open in a secure browser. Again, that's IT controlled. That has data loss prevention capabilities, meaning you can't print forward. You can't print forward that or take screenshots of it, right? Again, protecting the data. And then we also provide both native and containerized email solutions as well. So if you need an extra layer of security on your email, so some folks can have native email, right? The native email on your Android or iOS device, but some people need an extra protection, meaning you need a second, you want an application for them to specifically go into mail and get corporate mail and have to log in with some kind of credentials there, right? Again, for an extra added layer of security depending on policy. And then application management, right? We can turn off the native application stores today, right? So no one can download anything from the stores, and then you can provide your users an enterprise, what we call app catalog, that has both public and internal apps that's for them. So for example, if you are a health inspector and you need these apps, right? You can push down health inspection, whatever the health inspection app is, maybe workforce management app, a timekeeper app, a weather app for them, GPS app, right, for them that they want to use, right? But if it's somebody else, you can push different apps to them, right? And these were where you guys are building internal applications today within your agencies and departments, this is where you would load them up into AirWatch and where you can push them down to your users in order to use. The great thing about this is you also have version control, right? So if you have version 1, then 1.1 comes out, you can push that out and then pull it back if you find something wrong with it. Maybe it's not, authenticating correctly with your users. You can pull it back and refresh with the older versions, okay? So we provide app wrapping and SDK functionality as well to secure this stuff. Right. And then content, right? The biggest thing we hear right now is people have this, I don't want to say vendors' names, but this cloud drive problem, right? What do you do today when you have a 25 meg file, right? And you want to share it with a coworker, right? And you can't email it, right? Because it's too big. So what do? You put it in your personal cloud drive, right? And you shoot the link out, right? That's data leakage, right? Depending on that information, right? It's probably against corporate policy, right? In order for you to share that. So how do I do that? How do I provide enterprise-grade, IT-controlled cloud drive to people, right? And how do I make sure that I don't have to give all my data or content and push it into the cloud, right? Like these cloud vendors want me, these cloud content vendors want me to. I mean, we're in government, right? That's kind of a tough thing to ask, is to give me all your files and put it in my cloud, right? But you know what? With the right solution, you could have access to both, right? With the integrations. We can integrate with SharePoint, right? Web dabs, file repositories, OneDrives, Cloud Drives, Google Drives, right? But you see it all in this containerized application for your organization, right? Again, with the policies, identities, that you need, right? When you're in the field, you need that content, right? You want to have access to your own information and files that you need to get to. Right? Oh, and the good thing here too is that when you have a system like this that's the content is tied to the MDM portion, guess what? It builds context. What I mean by that is that there's not just a two-dimensional layer, it's a three-dimensional layer, meaning if I have a piece of content today that is critical for everyone in this room to have, but maybe it's 10 megs, right? If I was a traditional content management application, I would just push that down to you right now, right? And everyone would get it on their devices, right? But with an MDM, since we know what's going on with the device, we know if you're on Wi-Fi or if you're on cellular, right? And we can restrict that. So maybe you don't want them to download a 10 meg file and blow out their data plans, right? We know if the device has been compromised or rooted or jailbroken before we push that content out because we're managing the device, right? We know if you're roaming or not. We know if you have what % battery life you have or not, right? Maybe you don't have enough juice to download it, right? So combining this content management solution or application management solution with the multi-tenancy, right, and the security layer on top of that, right? This is why not only state and local organizations, but regulated organizations are running to, enterprise mobility management to do this versus a standalone product. Now, don't get me wrong, those standalone products fit a use case, right? So, and we integrate with all of them. So if you already have invested in something like that, that's great, right? But I would say view it from something like our content locker solution where the IT controls it, right? And there's data loss prevention surrounding it, right? And then a little bit about browsing management, traditional from outside. You can access really what we call app tunneling, where this is going directly into your backend repositories or resources, right? Without having to VPN the entire device, where all that data and traffic goes through your pipe, right? It's a per app kind of VPN. And with our mobile browsing, right, we can blacklist, whitelist, websites that you want to get to. Maybe it's just an internal HR page that you want people to get to because it posts, monthly things that you need to know, right? It could be as simple as that, or It could be CJIS, right? Criminal justice information that you're trying to access, right? And you're in law enforcement or a first responder, right? And then again, you can use your current internal web filtering solutions as well. And then also now the growing piece of the platform really is now incorporating laptop management, right? For the longest time, the OS X platform has already been transforming into being managed in a way like a mobile device. Now I'll tell you, with Windows 8 and forward, these things are now evolving to the same direction. Meaning, before, the application layer and the operating layer have been so tightly coupled, right? In XP and in Millennium and 95, right? That's why when you get a virus, right? It's easy to get a virus with 95 or Windows, and it affects everything within your computer. They have access to everything, right? But Windows 8 and above, they're becoming decoupled, right? And they're sitting on top of each other now, right? And so when you do that, you don't need a traditional, LAN desk type solution to manage laptops, right? These are what we call, network coupled management. Meaning, if you have a Windows device today, in order to get the updates and security patches and all that, you have to go either VPN in or go to your office and log in. And when you try to shut down, it gives you updating 1 of 50 patches, right? That's happening today, right? So Windows 8 and forward, Windows 10, right? All this stuff is going to happen over the air, right? Think about that. Over the air, this is happening just like a mobile device, right? We can push things out over the air, meaning if you're an inspector that never goes to the office, maybe once a quarter, right? Or you just come in once in a while, this is the type of solution you want, right? You want to be able to see, is that hard drive encrypted, right? Do they have the right profiles and provisionings, right? And so again, and then is this right for me to manage it under one pane of glass, right? One console, one management console am I looking at to do all this stuff? And then we talked a little bit about multi-user management. Again, the business case where, I have one device for many people, right? This is becoming more and more common, for different use cases, right? And then BYOD. Some organizations have it. Some people do different flavors of it, meaning I do full reimbursement, I do stipends, partial reimbursements, I don't do anything, right? I don't even have it, right? Or, or some organizations say, if we want to do BYOD, we're only supporting iOS, or only if it's Samsung and iOS, or only if it's LG, Samsung, and iOS devices, right? So there's different flavors of it, but how do you protect, and ensure employee privacy when you do it? Right? And you need a platform that can manage, all these different use cases, right? Different policies, right? And again, protecting the end user, because you want also the system to protect you, the end user, from IT, right? I don't want you to see, maybe I have diabetes and I don't want you to see a diabetes app on my phone, right? That's me, right? That's not for IT to see. So how do we create that, that policy? Right? At the IT level or at the solution level to do that. Maybe I don't want you to see GPS, right? Because it's a BYOD device. Right? How do you protect all those things? And also, talk about, enforcing or tracking from the IT standpoint, kind of, what is the end user agreement, right? The policy that I'm agreeing to, and how do we make that specific to your business unit, program area, department, right? So when you enroll in AirWatch, that terms of use comes up, but that's customizable to you. Right? Your designated group, organization group, or however it's designated, your department, right? And it can even be, you can even translate, that's translatable into different languages, depending on the operating system native language you've set for your device, right? So if my primary language is Spanish, and that's what I've set on my device, everything that I want to see from my enterprise management solution is I want it to be in Spanish, right? And that's kind of really where I wanted to end there, and then maybe open it up for some questions for me. Any questions? Is there anyone today that has a mobile device management solution implemented? Okay. So 10% of the room. Okay. Is there, let me see, is there a show of hands on people that are looking to implement one between 12 and 18 months? Or there's directives coming down in order to do so? Okay, so another 10 to 15% of the room. Okay. Again, one thing to consider when you're doing that is obviously the environment that you're going to do, right? I suggest that you always make sure that you do some kind of trial or proof of concept. I know that's kind of the standard for staying local anyway, right? You have to look at 3 things and vet them all out and all that, and then question.
When you're using this solution and you have a phone and a laptop, online?
So the question was, if I'm using a phone or a laptop, same user, is it 1 license or 2? Currently today, it's actually, there's both options. There is a user-based option, meaning 1 user can have as many devices as they want, or the per device model as well. Okay. Question?
What are the change management implications, especially if you already have allowed, kind of a BYOD, if you're not managing it? How have you managed that change?
Okay, so I'll repeat the question. So the question was change management. How do you do that? How do you do that with BYOD? That's already people bringing in their own devices, probably already getting email, and then you're going to ask them to kind of go under MDM enrollment, right? So a couple things. The biggest one for really is communication, right? The communication between the organization and the users, right? Here's kind of the plan, here's kind of the terms of use. In order for you to get something, we have to get something in return, which is security, right? So because we have to protect corporate data, corporate resources in order to do so. And I think the more you educate users on that, what it can and can't do, right? MDM cannot read your email. It cannot read your text, right? And that's something people may or may not know, right? They could be afraid of that, right? But it's educating and communicating that to people and saying, look, this is a way for us to protect it. It's a give or take, and if you don't want it, then if you don't want email, then don't enroll it. Don't bring your device. It's kind of one of those things where you have a job to protect your corporate data and your resources. But I would say communication, either both in written form and kind of like group forums where you can ask questions, they can ask questions and answer that, because a lot of it is really, again, it's a whole big brother type of thing. Hey, you're going to know where I am. My GPS, location all times, and all that stuff. So I think it's making sure that they know exactly what they're getting into. Also, with open records laws and all that, they have to know that, and they should know that anyway. And so if you have a laptop management or a desktop policy to some degree already, then that's a good framework to start with, right? And can kind of add on or expand upon that, but start off with something like that. Did I answer your question? Okay, great. All right, what I'll end with is obviously, like I said in the beginning, was there's a lot of VMware customers here today, and AirWatch is, I'm very, very glad that we're part of the VMware family and the federation of companies. And for those who are looking at or already have some of the end user computing products there or looking into those things, that's really where AirWatch MDM falls under. So if you're talking to your VMware salesperson, we kind of fall under that portion of the business where end user computing is. So the Horizon products, where the VDI, desktop as a service type products fall under. And so hopefully we'll start to see more integrations with that in the near term. Near term meaning probably 2+ years, right? We'll start seeing more integrations there. So. Like I said again, there's a lot of synergies going on, and really from the data center to the desktop, now to the mobile device, we pretty much have all the use cases covered between AirWatch and VMware. So it's honestly an exciting time for me, for mobility, for virtualization as a whole. So thank you guys today.